and welcome back to my channel, where I'm going to cover some additions to the Barbarian's Path of the Totem Warrior class specialization. These are feature changes that were made within the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide supplement to provide additional options for your characters using some of the different kinds of peoples and totemic symbols of Faerun. As I've already gone over what this class specialization is all about, I recommend you refer to the first video associated with the Path of the Totem Warrior, of which I will provide a link to in the description below so you may quickly access it. This video is only going to focus on the changes associated with the class specialization that were published with the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. Before I do that, however, there is one thing I need to point out in relation to some examples that were provided by this particular module, and that is associated with the Barbarian class and specifically through the Primal Pass. Scroll down until you get to the Path of the Totem Warrior, and this here is the table that I want to point out. The example in question provides details within the Uthgard Barbarians of the North, and it is right near the top of this particular explanation sheet for this particular subclass. And as you can see, what it does is it showcases the different kinds of spirit animals that they themselves are known to worship in relation to Faerun, and how you can map that to the appropriate spirit associated with the actual class specialization itself. Now, unfortunately, this is buried into the actual reference manual. You won't find this on the detailed information sheet here for the actual subclass directly. So in order to do this, you have to come to this particular information sheet to get at this. However, it does show you a good example of how to take some of the examples that they provided here and maybe create something similar for your own character's background and culture that they themselves have come from, and figure out how to potentially map that to one of the existing spirit animals that is associated with that creature. So instead of, say, the griffin here or the eagle, maybe your character is known to worship the hawk or some other form of bird of prey. So it would make sense in that particular case to map that to all of the features associated with the eagle. But let's move on to the first of the features that actually has a difference associated with its information sheet. And the first one is going to be the totem spirit. And the changes associated with this particular feature are the addition of 2 new animals associated with the kinds of spirit animals your character can reference or worship. In this case, it's the elk and the tiger. With the elk, your character gains a movement speed increase of 15 additional feet for their walking speed while raging and not wearing any armor. While the tiger spirit itself adds 10 feet of additional long jump distance and up to 3 more feet of high jump capabilities while raging, but it doesn't restrict you to not wearing armor in this particular case. However, neither of these features or spirits require any additions to our character's action sheet in relation to anything that is actionable from this particular page. So they're really just there to give you some ideas and capabilities that you can make use of. You'll just have to make sure you keep them in mind as a result of the particular spirit that you've chosen. The next feature that gains a few enhancements is the aspect of the beast feature, and it continues with the additional options related to the elk and the tiger spirits. With the elk spirit, your character is able to double the pace of their travel speed, and this is not something that you would use during a combat encounter, but when they're actively traveling between 2 separate locations on a world map or something that is equivalent. This can also benefit up to 10 party members or other traveling companions as long as they all remain within 60 feet of where your character is currently traveling. This helps whether your character or your party members are mounted or not, so if your entire party is mounted, then the speed of the mounts is doubled. But if the party is simply walking on foot, then the normal traveling speed itself is doubled. The Spirit Tiger, on the other hand, allows your character to become proficient with 2 additional skills out of the 4 that are listed in the information sheet. The skills in question are the Athletics, Acrobatics, Stealth, or Survival skills, so you could choose to add proficiency to, say, the Stealth and Survival skills, for instance, or a combination of a total of 2 of those skills. And this is really the only option that has anything that would require an adjustment specific to your character's capabilities in their information sheet. And in this case, it's under the Skills tab. Now, our particular character here, our example character, already has Athletics. And do they have Stealth or Survival? They have Survival. So in this particular case, it would make sense to go with Stealth and Acrobatics as the 2 features that we provide proficiency to. And that's literally all you do, is you just make sure that you have a gold star next to the actual skill that you want to make proficient. However, this is also one of the few aspects or options that your character doesn't need to be raging in order to gain these benefits. Well, let's be honest, it would be very difficult to maintain a rage while you're traveling from one location on a map to another. Doesn't make sense, does it? The last feature that gains any enhancement is the Totemic Attunement feature, and this also provides some changes that are introduced by the Elk and the Tiger Spirits. The Elk essentially allows your character to bull their way through a creature who is of the tiny, small, medium, or large size classifications as a bonus action. This means your character will be able to pass through a hostile creature's position on a map in order to do this, and this will force that creature to make a strength-based saving throw or be knocked prone as a result. Additionally, they will suffer 1d12 plus your character's strength modifier in bludgeoning damage as part of the process if they failed their saving throw. And the good news for us here is that the features are pretty much already set up in the actual information sheet. So all we have to do is drag and drop this into place, move this down to our Path of the Totem Warrior group, and ignore the fact that I already have a Totemic Attunement aspect here. That is simply because of the previous version of this particular character dealt with the wolf and the bear examples. But for this particular case, this is associated with the elk. And we can see that we have a saving throw here. I'm just going to pop that open to correct the value. It's a little high, but okay. And what this means is that any target that your character is going to try to bludgeon their way through would have to make a saving throw against a DC of 21 in this particular case. And I am using a relatively high-level character here, so kind of makes sense. When that happens, they're going to suffer some damage and be knocked prone as a result of that. And I can show you an example of how that works. So I'm going to set it up so that our Barbarian is going to attack this vampire. And I pick on them because they're relatively easy to not do a whole lot of damage to, so they survive a lot of encounters. Anyway, so my character is going to bull their way through this vampire. That vampire is going to have to make a saving throw. And in this case, they managed to succeed somehow by 1 point. Oh my. In any event, nothing else happens. However, if they happen to fail, so let's say this is a next round and I use this as a bonus action. In this case, they failed. Now what gets to happen is I get to drop the damage onto that particular target as well as knock them prone. Now, anytime that I make an attack against this particular character, as long as it's a melee-based attack, I'm going to have advantage on that until they stand up. So it provides some level of advantage, if you will, to the rest of the party. Now, the Tiger Spirit will allow your character to make an additional melee attack as a bonus action if your character moved in a straight line for a total of 20 feet towards the target in question that your character is going to be attacking. Once again, the size restrictions of the target must be tiny, small, medium, or large in size categories, and your character must be making a melee-based attack as their primary attack action. Because this feature is really just giving us the ability to make an extra attack through a bonus action, there really isn't anything that we need to deal with from an actions addition, if you will. So the way that this is going to work is actually fairly straightforward. If my Barbarian here is 20 feet away from the vampire, and I move in a straight line towards them, then when I make my melee-based attack, so if I scroll up here, let's say I attacked with my Morningstar. Now they're prone, so I have advantage. That's a hit. I do damage. I can now make a second melee attack using the exact same weapon that I did as a bonus action. And in this case, I hit. So I'm going to do some additional points of damage. And that's how this particular feature works. And overall, these enhancements are a really nice addition to provide a little bit more variety for what your character can worship from a spirit animal and give you some examples as well as how to take some even completely different animals and map them to the kinds of animals that are here within this particular list. However, this does bring us to the end of this particular video. I hope you found it useful and informative, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I want to thank you for watching this video, and if you found the information useful, click on that like button as well as leave a comment below as it helps the channel gain exposure. Also, consider subscribing as I release content similar to this topic quite regularly on the channel.